Welcome to The Third Chair, a show about real people, real stories, real life. And here are your hosts for The Third Chair, Peter Grigg and Doug Bazeski.
I don't know about you, but I thought Jamie's stories last week were pretty powerful.
Oh, very intense.
Yeah, man. It's just like some of the living on the street and what he was doing, and
So they had living in a car, living in his garage, living in
a storage unit, doing anything to get drugs. I mean, stories we've heard before, but just so powerful. So I'm looking forward to hearing more of them tonight, and more on what he's done on the other side of things,
which is amazing in itself.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I hope others can follow his example. It's our pleasure to have back Jamie Dallin. Well, welcome to this week's edition of The Third Chair with Peter. I'm still named Peter, Doug, and our special guest, James Dallin, coming in live from Salt Lake City. James, thanks for being here. You have an incredible story of being a businessman, having a horrible journey with addiction, turning your life around, and now engaged in trying to help kids and protect kids. And we're so excited about hearing more details of your journey. Where we left off last week, you had, after several days of using meth...
Four.
Yeah. That's, and feeling like you got addicted fairly quickly. You left your home, your kids, your wife, and entered...
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks, yeah. That turned into 5 years?
5.5.
Oh, man.
Almost.
And so... you drove off that night when you told your wife goodbye, and what happened from that point on?
Oh, it became, in my mind at that point, it became a party, but it was just devastation. You know, I followed the lady that gave me the meth. I followed her to the bar. She was head bartender, where she introduced me to the bar owner. And, you know, an 80-year-old lady, and she was great. She let me live at her house. And I had a little bit of a spot in the bar where I kept a few things. And because of the meth, I was up 5 days. I'd crash, up 6 days, crash, up 5 days, crash. And it was like one big kind of blurry party. So that happened for the first year and a half. I mean, in the bar, there's drugs coming in and out. It's just crazy that whatever drug you wanted, you could get, you know? And here's what a lot of people ask me. I think it's fascinating. It still blows me away. I was an alcoholic on the floor for 2 solid years. And now I'm working in a bar. Not only that, I'm bartending. And then a lot of people will say, how did you do that? I got all this liquor around 24/7, and the reason is meth. That's how much meth took over my life. I didn't want anything else. I didn't care about anything else.
So
just the meth.
Just the meth. And
So eating was. Did you ever were hungry or crave anything eating wise?
That's a great question, because normally I wasn't. This is why most people that go on, in fact, all people that go on meth, from what I've seen, they start dropping the pounds. You know, they start looking really small, and that's what happened to me. So you get a few snacks here and there, maybe a pizza a week, and you're fine, because that meth kind of just curbs your appetite, and you don't feel hungry, you know, and you don't sleep. Yeah, those two together, and that's not a good combination.
Did you get paid for being the bartender, or was that sort of you're working for room and board, or how did that work? And how did you pay for your drug habit?
Yeah. So the first year and a half in the bar, it was pretty easy to make money to get the drug, because yes, I was working, but it was, like you mentioned, it was to kind of pay for my room and board, kind of hang out. But I did get some money there, and then the lady I followed there, she had so many so many kind of hookups, I guess, with the drug. So it wasn't a normal situation as far as people on the streets that had to pay full price, just stressing about it. At that point, it was really easy for me to get it for the first year and a half until that bar went out of business.
What happened
When
then?
that bar went out of, what's that?
What happened after the bar closed?
Yeah, when the bar went out of business, so after that, I lived in a drug house for just a short time. I lived in garages, storage units, and in my car for the
Wow.
rest of that time. So 3.5 years, that's where I lived.
Now, when you say you lived in a drug house, is that, I mean, I heard of things like crack houses. Is that basically a house where anyone that wanted to use could just kind of come and use, or were there special rules? I mean, how does a drug house even work?
Yeah, it's very interesting, and they're really good. It's they distribute. They're the dealers. And a lot of people actually, like you said, they'll meet there and they'll have, a lot of times people, what you do is you just pass the drug around and you sit there and hang out and everybody's high and it's just crazy. But in this case, this house was a big time dealer. They dealt heroin, they dealt the cocaine, they dealt the meth, they dealt all the pills in between. And so it's very dangerous as far as, getting busted by the authorities, because they'll stake you out. And so what a lot of dealers do that a lot of people don't know is they'll rent a house and they'll jump that lease after 6 months and get another house, jump into another house. So they're hard to kind of track. Well, this house that I was in, it was a family business. Family, great people. It would blow you away, but great people.
Wow.
But so there's rules. You can't just show up. I mean, they're very specific rules to keep everything clean. They had cameras on every corner of the house. You can't just show up, and there can't be more than one, maybe two people that come into the house at once, because they're most likely getting, the cops across the street watching everything that's going on. So you actually had to park a couple blocks away and walk in.
Wow.
And a lot of people, there's so many tricks. They walk in with groceries, and in the middle of the loaf of bread, there's the drugs, right? I mean, it's just crazy.
That is crazy.
It's crazy.
Now, speak to this a little bit, because I've talked with lots of people with addiction who basically said at the worst of time that they would do anything to get their drugs.
Yeah, and that's true for me. That's true for everybody I knew. When you're addicted that bad, you'll do some things that you don't. I mean, that are sad. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to get into that too much. But if I got to the point where there was no drug, unless there was like in the middle of somebody's house, I would not have hesitated one bit to go into somebody's house in the middle of the night and try to get to that drug. I wouldn't. I didn't have. You don't have a conscience, and you have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
When Christmas break comes up, and your drug dealer is going to be out of town, that's what we call an emergency. You got to be planning ahead. You can't be running out on Christmas break. You can't. So, I mean, there's ways that people do it. I say this, and a lot of people get surprised by this. I think Walmart's the biggest promoter and supplier of drugs. Not promoting on purpose, but most of the drug money comes from Walmart. And I say that because they're really good. These people that do drugs with that I was with. Unfortunately, I was a getaway car a couple times. They were good. They'd go into these Walmarts and they just walk out with carts full of stuff. every single time. They knew the rules. They know who loss prevention was. They knew who the managers were. They knew how many managers worked at night. They knew how far they could chase them outside because there's rules for that. They knew everything. And most of the money came from them selling those products
Wow.
on the street to get cash to get the drug. Yeah.
So they'd steal a laptop from Walmart to turn around and sell on the street or something like that. Wow.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to ask the question, did you have friends while you were sort of doing the street drug time that overdosed and died? And we will address that when we come right back. Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter, this is Doug, and we are here with James Dallin, live from just south of Salt Lake City. James, good to see you.
You too.
Thank you. When we left off, I'd asked a question. You'd been kind of living a street addict's life for a while, and I was curious. Did you lose friends and people you knew and acquaintances from drug overdoses?
Yeah, I did, and it's very, very sad. And at first, it just blew me away because you hear about it all the time coming through school. But when I saw it firsthand, it was really difficult for me. And some of them I was close to, and some of them I was very, very close to. And good people that we lost at a young age, and most of them, there was a couple from alcohol that drank too much alcohol. Their liver was past the point of recovering, and that was very sad. Just good people, And the one that hit me the most was a man named Joe. He doesn't have any family around. Just a great guy, genius mechanic. And he was texting me. After I was out of the drug world. So I'm out of the drug world, but we're still in touch. And he's a genius mechanic. He's so proud of himself because he sent me pictures of this white 1992 convertible Mustang that he just got done restoring. And he's proud of that. He's getting his license back because he had it taken away. And then the next week, I get a call from the drug friends that say we found Joe in the storage unit, leaned up against the wall, kind of thing. And I don't want to go too much, but yeah, that was hard. So.
And what about during times? Were there times when you were in real danger, like drug deals that went bad? People shooting at you, people trying to stop you if you're in a getaway car. Did you have those kinds of experiences that you're able to talk about?
didn't have any problems in a drug deal, but I do say this: the drug deal. I say the worst thing about doing drugs is doing the drug. The next thing is the drug deal. I didn't have a problem with it, but I heard of many people that had a problem with it. As far as danger goes, yeah. I was in the bar, and there's cross shooting coming in through the walls because there's a business connected to the bar, and that's where the problem was. But there's just gunfires coming there. I mean, I was hitting the deck, everybody was ducking. That's just one little experience. One time I was in a condo complex. I just snuck in with my car. I was going to spend the night there. The drug was across the street, so it was close. And I'm about falling asleep, and my door opens, and there's this somebody with a little tiny flashlight, and it startled me. I was like, and then they just ran away, and they had a car behind me. I had no idea. Lights off. There was just stuff like that happened. There's a little bit, more, but it's a little bit more dark that I've had experiences with.
You'd mentioned earlier that at times meth sort of made you feel like a Superman, and you were challenging big guys to a fight and things like that, talking smack. Did it affect your driving the same way? Because I know, like with alcohol and DUI, I mean, you're just uncoordinated, and you may go slow or you may go fast, but you crash. But there's definitely not a sense of invincibility when you're drunk. Usually, was your driving different when you were high?
You know what? It wasn't. It was actually a little bit better, and that surprised a lot of people, because the meth, it makes you crazy you do stupid stuff. But when it comes to when you zero in on something, it seems like I was a lot better.
Well,
I had no problem driving at all. No one would ever have known, ever.
And
I was straight as an arrow. I mean, in the bar we'd throw darts.
Getting some people
yeah. By the way,
Well,
the third term does not endorse meth for your driving. That's our official position.
That's right.
Yeah. What about you had mentioned in pre-production that you were like one of the early Uber drivers for the business because you had a car and everyone didn't. How did that work out?
So after the bar went out of business, I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, I found out quickly that there's very few people that are on drugs that were in my circle that had a vehicle. So they're walking in the snow to the bus stop. They're riding their bike, and they hated it. So I got in good with one of the dealers, who's Joe, who's the one they found in the storage unit.
Yeah.
And I brought them everywhere. And so I got paid in drugs and cash. I didn't have to worry about it for the rest of my active addiction.
Wow.
No worries.
So
I had plenty.
All good parties come to an end. How did your drug addiction story come to an abrupt halt?
Yeah, I was in a drug deal, and we're in a certain spot that we normally do the deal, and I was 3 cars down. I slipped into their car, and next thing I know is there's 6 South Salt Lake police that surrounded us, and it wasn't 30 seconds later I was on the asphalt and cuffed, and I'm looking like the guy. I'm 113 pounds. I have no soul, nothing in my eyes. It's just dark. And at that moment, I thought to myself, I am that guy. I'm that guy. The guy that I used to say is lower than me because I was arrogant. The guy that I'd say was dirty and lived downstairs in the alleys. I was that guy now. I was that guy. And I was a good guy. And I felt, when police, I like to say this, when police come, I like to be nosy. I want to know what's going on over there if there's somebody that's pulled over. I'm nosy when I see police cars. Well, that's exactly what happened when I got arrested in this deal. I'm standing there cuffed, about ready to be put in the cop car, and there's these people watching, just watching. And in my head, I thought, no, it's not what you think. I had a business. I passed the test. I accomplished it. I read books. This is what's in my mind. I'm not this guy, I promise. But it didn't matter because I was. And they could see it. And they put me in the cop car and booked me into the South Salt Lake County Jail for possession of meth.
Possession of meth. And then, like one of the most impossible things imaginable happens. You get saved by, bailed out by
my wife
that you had not seen for 5.5 years or so.
Yeah, who absolutely went through misery. It's just misery for 5.5 years. She bailed me out. Had to call a couple times. She hung up, and I don't blame her.
Yeah.
And then she's the only phone number I knew. Everybody else is in my phone. And I knew it was going to be. I only had a slim chance that she would. And the third time she said okay.
Wow.
And I don't get it to this day, because see, I get emotional about this. This lady, she is incredible. I mean, for 9 months she sat here alone. She didn't even tell her parents because she wanted to save my name, hoping that I would come back. This is the kind of lady she is. I mean, and then to pick me up, to bail me out. Trust me, my bail wasn't cheap. To do that, and then to allow me to come back to a situation that is bright, that is good feeling, that's away, most importantly, away from that drug world, where I could start to recover, is absolutely. If that didn't happen, I don't know where I'd be. So
yeah,
we're talking about alcohol. Yes, it was her. When we're talking about meth, it was all her.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And that is emotional. We're going to hold that thought, and when we come back, we're going to start talking about, let's call it the journey to giving back and helping others, not going where you went. And we'll do that when we come right back. We'll get back to our guest in just a moment. But
do you have a story to tell?
Would you, yes you, like to be a guest on The Third Chair?
Send us an email and tell us about yourself and your story.
And please follow us on social media.
Now back to the episode. Welcome to The Third Chair. That's Peter. I'm still Doug, although I might change it next episode.
And
there's James. Get a haircut. Well, I don't know if that'll be by the next episode. But one of these days. So, James, so now you're coming back to your family, and your wife comes and bails you out, and you go through a trial and all this. And what is your children's reaction when you come back home after all this time, 5.5 years gone?
Yeah, they were initially. I mean, they were excited to see their dad, but there was some hesitancy there. There were some trust issues, obviously, and for me, I had to show action. It was all about action, instead of words. So that's what I tried to do. I talked to them. I sat down and talked with everyone. I said, I understand if you're mad, if you're angry, if you have any questions, I will never get mad. Just come and ask me. Just talk to me. Just talk to me whenever you feel like you need to. Even if you feel like it's little or it doesn't matter, talk to me. And that's been a big, huge thing. And I talked to them, but it was hard. It was a little bit difficult to get that trust back.
Right.
It just doesn't come back. So and kind of get to know them a little bit. The 5.5 years when they're, when they're in their teenage years, that's quite a change. So, so yeah, it was a little awkward at first, and then my kids have been very forgiving and understanding, and it's been.
That's nice.
I've been lucky.
Yeah, and now
Yeah.
now you do go around to, as Peter mentioned earlier, middle schools and high schools and give speeches on what you went through as a drug addict. How did that come about?
Yeah. I had a friend, a good friend of about 20 years who was a health teacher. And she knew I got clean. I came off the drugs. And she just asked me if I could come in and just talk for 20, 25 minutes about my experience. And I thought, yeah, that's no problem, no big deal. And I didn't have a presentation or anything. I just stood there and talked. And so I did, and so that's what I did. And I just basically did a brief story about it, and that was it. And I went home. And the next thing I know, I'm getting these emails from different teachers. Well, what happened was she sent an email out to other health teachers that, hey, you might want to have this guy come and explain to your kids. It was actually kind of interesting. And I was just so blown away, so humbling. I started getting booking, and it started overwhelming me. I thought, no way. Every day. And I don't know how it happened. I honestly can't sit here and tell you how it happened. But it came to the point where I knew I had to make a presentation. I had to do something different, because now I'm talking 70 or 80 minutes in front of these kids, and I had to have a plan, but I was loving it. I was loving it. And for me, coming out of addiction, I think that's been the single most powerful thing that I have ever done, most rewarding thing I've ever done. And I think that has been my therapy. That has been my therapy. I really do believe that. I've learned things about my time in addiction that I would not have learned if I wasn't with these kids. And what I mean by that, they would ask me, I open up for questions at the end, and they'd ask me questions. And I would think, that's a good question. So I go back and I would study that question and try to come up with my answer that was just as honest as possible. And I had that in my back of my head, ready for that question being asked again. For the first 20% presentations, I kept one of those little recorders, and I kept it in my pocket. And I started to listen to it every time I got back home. And I just wanted to perfect what I was saying, and make an impact on the amount of time I had to do that.
So at some time, did you start getting paid for doing these speeches?
Yeah. Some of the schools, yes. That at first, the thing that's hard with schools is there's different budgets, and I didn't feel like it was right to let a school down or to let the kids down because of a budget problem. So that was difficult, but at the same time, I was doing it full time, and I had to make money somehow. So yeah, there's a lot of schools that do. I try not to let the schools that pay know this, but there are some that don't, and that's just the way I feel. I just feel like that I owe it to them to go and do that for them. And when you're in drugs, you take from the world, you take from your community. I was selfish. I was so selfish, I didn't care. And so this is a way for me to kind of give back. And so I look at it that way as well. Now on the virtual stuff, I've done 14 or 15. Yeah, that's all paid. So, And that's, I hope to keep growing that, and
Do you know about
we'll see what happens.
Do you know about how many speeches you make a year?
On my website, what did I count? I counted before this last semester that I've given 506 presentations. Now it's probably more like 560 something presentations.
Wow.
And just 5 semesters. So I've been invited clear to Atlantic City to give a speech on the boardwalk there
Oh, neat.
with 3,000 people, with 3,000,
Awesome. So
and
you
that's through
talk
my
to a
social
lot of
media.
people.
Someone picked up on that. So I've had these opportunities. It's just been absolutely humbling and amazing. I just can't believe it.
Fantastic.
So.
Yesterday during the production meeting, you told us that you don't sugarcoat the speeches. Can you kind of give an overview of what you say in these speeches? I mean, you don't have to go into detail. That you hope the kids take away from this so that they don't get into drugs like happened to you.
Yeah, I always say, I've got my job going into the school is I've got to get these kids to feel it. What I mean by that, they got to feel. I want to bring them into the world. I want them to be as if they were me. I want it to be that real. And so I want them to feel it. If they feel it, I believe that they actually will believe it. If they feel it, most likely. And then if they believe it, I believe that perhaps they'll use it in their life at some point. And that's kind of my motto. Feel it, believe it, use it. And that's my goal. So yes, I had to figure out, what am I going to do different? What's going to separate me from the next guest speaker? Because when I was in school, we got a lot of guest speakers, and these kids, they hear about a guest speaker and they're like, oh, here we go again. No, I wanted to be different. But how different can you be when you're giving a presentation? Well, so the thing I came up with is I'm going to be just as real as possible. And it's age appropriate. There's a lot of dark I leave out, of course. But it gets these kids. I mean, I show them pictures. It's okay. So everything I say, here's what's different. Everything I say, I show them a picture. I don't show them a picture that's off somebody else's page. I don't show them a picture off of Google. No. They want to see the drug house I lived in? Here it is right here. You want to see the storage units and garages? Do you want to see the stuff that was in there? It's right here on my presentation back here. Do you want to see some of the people? Do you want to see some of my friends that overdosed? All of that. That's in my presentation. I want them to really feel, I really want them to see that happens in our backyard all the time. Right. And that's the best thing I could think of to come up with. And so far, it's worked. I think they appreciate that more than someone coming in and give them statistics. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know statistics, but they don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. They don't want to hear that.
Right.
They want to know. They want to know what it was like.
Very intense 70 minutes.
Yeah. So I just prepared a presentation, and I continue to try to improve it. I still use my recorder, and I try to just do the best I can, because I'll notice things in my presentation, like I'll come up with things. Yeah. You know what? I need to do this. I need to say this.
Well, when we come back, I'm going to ask you, these talks help you keep you sober and clean, and we'll be right back.
Hi, it's Peter from the set of The Third Chair. I just want to put in a good word for my good friend and owner of 9 Round Kickboxing in Colorado Springs, Melissa Lance. Her studios provide a phenomenal workout in 30 minutes. I know I've benefited from it over the last 2 years. I've lost over 30 pounds and really appreciate the encouragement, the excitement, the expertise of the trainers. It's a great workout. I encourage you to check it out. That's 9-round kickboxing in Colorado Springs.
Welcome back. I'm Doug. That's Peter, and we're talking to James. And James, before break, I gave you some time to think about this. Just talking to these kids, middle school, high school, does that help you keep you sober and clean?
Yeah, it really has. It really has. And I think it's just reviewing, all the time what I went through, reminding myself I never want to go back to that. And not only that, there's a level of accountability, responsibility that I have with these kids that I, quite frankly, if they found out that something happened to me as far as going back into the drug world, I think I would devastate them.
Oh, that's true.
So that's a responsibility. Keeps me honest. And I think this has been my recovery. This has been my therapy, without question.
Well, the 12th step of AA or NA is basically go help other suffering addicts. That's really considered a major part of staying sober and clean, is helping other people either not get into that situation, or if they're in that situation, helping them.
Yeah. I've never felt this before. I've never felt so like I'm really making a big difference. I've never felt that like this. So satisfying. And then you're changing people's lives. These kids will Instagram you or they'll DM you. They send you letters. I mean, when you're making an impact and you can help some of these kids, there's nothing better than that. There isn't really. I don't think there is. It just feels like some service, and
yeah. Well,
I don't know how to explain it.
Well, it seems like it gives your life more meaning and purpose.
It absolutely, it does. And after being out of that for so long, almost a decade of being selfish and whatever, to be able to give back like this, I'm so lucky. I'm very lucky and humbled, because a lot of people try to do what I'm doing, and for some reason, I was able to do it, and that was the help with my mental health teacher that got me started. But after that, it was good.
You had told us in our pre-production meeting about a story. You were at the school, and one of the kids alerted you to the fact that there was another child that was perhaps using Xanax and alcohol, or both of them together, or something. Do you remember that story that you told us, and could you tell it again?
Yeah. The students it was second or third presentation. Again, I didn't have the things up here, but the students heard I was coming, so they're coming into the classroom. There's a tall student, there's a shorter one. The shorter one, they're friends. The shorter one comes up to me and says, "James, I heard you talking about drugs today." I said, "Yeah, a little bit." And he says, "Do you think you could talk about Xanax? Because my guy back there, my friend, he's doing the Xanax and the alcohol on the weekend, and both downers. I'm worried that something's going to happen to him. So maybe if he hears it from you, it would make a difference." I said, "Yeah, I know about it. I'll hit Xanax in this little thing here, my presentation." So I did, just for about a minute and a half. I didn't have much time. And I hit it. And then I went back and I was mingling with the students, fist bump, talked to him for a second. This kid was so respectful, this tall kid. And then that was it. I left. And 2 months later, I get a text. This is 2 days after Christmas. That he did too much alcohol, and he was pumped full of Xanax, and he passed away. And and I took that hard, because I've been around, like we mentioned before, I've been around people that have overdosed, that have died. But to have a young student with all of his life ahead of him, listen to my presentation, pleading for them to stay away at all costs. For him to do that after 2 months after my presentation, that hit me hard. And that's when I knew I had to do something different. And that's what started that process going.
So, and by that process going, that was part of not sugarcoating it, showing pictures, doing whatever you could to kind of get into their head and heart.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I wanted it to be a presentation that they didn't forget after 2 months. I wanted it to be something that they would remember for years. And I tell them at the end of my presentation, you're my people. You're all my people now. You've heard my presentation. I can't have any more texts coming from teachers that say one of you guys went lights out. I can't handle that. So they do me a favor and don't allow that to happen because you're my people and we need you. You know, I kind of do that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that. These kids they have to be strong. They're so strong.
Wow.
And sometimes they just need to be reminded that that's the case. And
And
a lot of them are depressed. And
yeah, and be reminded that there are other adults that believe in them, and that they're not
yes,
alone. You know, I really like what you said earlier
absolutely.
about the idea of telling them, look, I felt stupid, but I wasn't stupid, and I'm sure kids related to that. That had to be powerful.
Yeah, I believe that. And there's a whole nother presentation I'm working on as far as that goes, as far as school goes. And these kids need to know that they are, like you said, they're smart. Listen, there's not one student in here I tell them that I cannot learn something about. In fact, I used to start my presentation on the slide. It said, give me 5 minutes with you. Let me ask you questions for 5 minutes. If you're honest and answer those questions back, I will give you 15 minutes back of why I think you're special, unique, and the world needs you. That's what I'm going to do. And I've never once been proven wrong. That's how much I believe in these kids. And they don't believe it. They can't believe it, but it's true. It's true. They just need to know. I don't know. Everybody's unique. And I think that I don't know, I'm just very passionate about that because I didn't feel I was.
I like it. I'm changing directions just a little bit. Has there been anything special that you've had to do with your relationship with your wife and your kids? I'll just leave it open ended at that.
Um, yeah, my so with my kids, it was all action, like I mentioned, and less talk. You go to the grocery store and his dad can come back type thing. Now with my wife, I I left for 5 years, and she just can't just sit there and just be like, well, whatever, hoping that I'll come back. Although she did for quite some time, but she kind of did her stuff, and she got used to the fact. She accepted the fact I wasn't coming back, and so she was starting to prepare to, do some stuff with it. She had every right to do. She was going to go get maybe a life back, and I came back, and it was a situation where we got along. We talked about it. Both of us could be there for the kids. Always been friends, and the first presentations I did, I would say I'm downstairs and she's upstairs, and I don't know. Well, 9 months ago, we made the decision that we're going to really see what can happen. So I don't know how to explain it. I don't.
Sure.
But I'm very, very, very lucky. Yeah.
We're going to take one last break, and when we come back, I've got a question for you, and that is, what are your future plans and goals with respect to all this? Including, are you going to get more involved in audiovisual production, or produce CDs that people could watch, or any of those sorts of things? I'm interested to know what your plans are when we come right back.
Sounds good.
coffee of the Kentucky-Arizona Walnut Association?
It's kava.
The national coffee of Kawasaki, Japan?
It's kava.
Hiya!
Is it the secret elixir of the surfers in Hawaii?
Or is it the secret island recipe of Kona, Koala, Kauai, or Cola?
It's kava. Kava is Polish for coffee. And here at Kava Coffee, we focus on serving a delicious, high-quality cup of coffee in a space where love, coffee, and people mix into the perfect blend.
We value our relationships with our customers and our roasters. Buy locally whenever possible and truly have the homemade touch. Our pastries, syrups, and even our almond milk are made in-house.
So come on in, relax, get some work done. Enjoy the Kava community. Some encouraging words from the Kava Coffee gang.
Kava Coffee.
Be awake.
Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter. That's Doug. That's James. James, thanks for being here. When we left off, we were asking the question, what are your future plans and goals and objectives and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's just to build on where I'm at and to continue to get better. I would love to travel the country and talk in person. And then the virtual stuff, I think, is the way of the future. That's going to be a big part of the future.
Do you
So I'm working on that as well. And what's that?
do you see yourself staying in Utah?
Not necessarily, but I mean, right now, yeah. Right now, yeah. And I'm optimistic about what I do. It kind of seems weird, but the way the world is, we have a lot of first-time drug addicts. We have a lot of people coming in out of relapse. So more than ever before, probably in the history of the country, we need to be talking about this, and we need to be helping these kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's my mission. I feel like that's just what I want to do, and I feel like that I'm somewhat effective, at least a little bit, in what I do, and I just want to get better, and I just want to just help as many people as I can.
Do you think that there's too much emphasis on punishment for drug offenses and that there should be more emphasis on treatment, or how do you feel sort of about that whole thing?
Yeah, I do. I feel like there is way too much punishment. Now, first time drug possession, I think that we should be looking at treatment.
Yeah.
If we got a violent drug possession and they're violent, then that's something different.
Yeah.
We might got a first time drug possession, someone that's been addicted to heroin for 20 years and they're in a cell with cement and 8x8. That is inhumane to me.
Yeah.
And it's not helping them. It's making them mad,
Yeah.
And so there's got to be a different way. I agree. There's got to be some treatment there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you as well. So let's tell us how and who you would like to contact you, and what social media connections should people contact you if they want to contact you.
Yeah, anybody that wants to talk to me can talk to me. I'm open. And it's not just kids, it's parents, anybody else. I have all sorts of different people that DM me, message me. I love talking to all of them. I'll help where I can, and then I have resources for for what I don't know, what's appropriate for me to refer to. So anybody, if you have a question about kids, or if the kids have questions about their parents, anybody. And the way you can contact me is through my website, jamesdallin.com. And Instagram is a big one, Addiction Talk, at Addiction Talk on Instagram. And then email me if you'd like, and you can find that through my website as well. And it's just james@jamesdallin.com.
Excellent.
So,
well, we will certainly put that information up on the screen here and do that. And we do encourage people to contact you, as well as people that may have a paid speaking gig. Please contact James. So with that, we're going to wrap up. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you know when we have uploaded a video to the channel. From everyone here at the Third Chair and 2 Men and a Duck Entertainment, good night, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much, James, for being here with us.
Thank you. Very intense
thanks for having
episode.
me. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and God
All
bless.
right.
This has been The Third Chair. Want to be a guest? Want to sponsor our show? Send us an email. Please subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media.